Here's a recap of the markets on this Wednesday, the 6th day of August. After the very nice cool down over the weekend, temperatures outside warming up once again, but it's not near as hot outside as it is inside the sale barns right now. Both of our tracking measures once again setting all-time new record highs again today, and that's no surprise given that pretty much any sale you pick out at any sale barn is, if it's not a new record, it's dang close once again. Taking a look at the Missouri Stocker formula, based on roughly a 550-pound steer through the auction barns in the state of Missouri, 409.39. The CME Cash Feeder Cattle Index, based on an 800-pound steer up through the 12-state feeding region today, 336.21. Taking a look at a few of the stick-out sales around the sale barns today, and again, any barn you picked, you could find some new records being set on some class and some weight. But a few of the sales that we found early that stuck out today. Green City Livestock Auction, they sold several loads of yearling steers today. One load, 800-pound smooth, $364. A load of 869-pound steers at $340.50. And a load of 944-pound steers at $336.50. Springfield Livestock Marketing Center, they had 33 head of 708-pound steers at $376. Windsor Livestock Auction, they sold a load of 725-pound steers at $375.50. The stickouts there, though, that probably caught my eye the most were some heifer sales. 87 head of 585-pound heifers at Windsor brought $394. 126 head of 804-pound heifers at Windsor today, $327.50. Box beef cutout values closed higher. Choice, $374.86. That was up $4.92. Select, $351.36, up $5.42. Those values based on 83 loads of cuts, trimmings, and grinds. The Choice Select spread at $23.50. Negotiated feedlot trade for the week, 1,573 head of confirmed sales so far this week. Most of those sales have been outside of the 5-state feeding region, and there's been a pretty wide spread of prices so far. Texas this week, 479 head at $237 today. That would be a touch higher than last week. Kansas has reported about 45 head this week. Iowa 154, Nebraska 90 head. Those sales in the north earlier in the week, again, just kind of mixed to steady with last week, 238 to 242 so far, but very light volume so far this week. And most guys with the futures being up so far, if they continue, holding out for steady to maybe a bit better money this week, hoping for that again. But we'll have to see how that plays out. Probably again this week it could be Friday before we see significant trade, as that has seemed to be the trend the last several weeks as this market just keeps creeping higher. The futures markets today, live cattle, August 236.30, that was up 202. October 229.65 up 255. December at 230.72 up 257. August feeder cattle up $3.97 for the day at $345.02. September up $4.67, $344.22, and October $4.57 higher at $342.40. Lean hogs for August closed a dime higher, $108.87. October was down 82 at $91.97, and December $84.52, down 65. Turning our attention now to the grain markets. And those grain farmers sure would like some of the momentum that's with the cattle market right now. Doesn't seem like what comes out in any of the ag news media, the only thing that seems to matter right now in the grain markets is the fact that everybody's just so confident that there's going to be an absolutely bin-busting crop this year. And that may end up being true, but there's still a long time before the combines get out into most of the grain-producing states. That being said, they have started harvest down in Texas and Louisiana now, cutting some corn. Taking a look at the grain bids, the cash bids at the elevators around the state. Of course, these are current bids for old crop, and there is absolutely basically no love for old crop grains right now. Soybeans were 3 to 6 lower today. Wheat was 2 cents higher. Corn unchanged to a penny lower. Corn bids at the elevators in St. Louis, 401 to 402. Kansas City at 386. Soybean bids in St. Louis soybean bids in St. Louis, 979 to 982. Kansas City at 959. Wheat bids in St. Louis, 474 to 481. Taking a look at the futures markets today on the Board of Trade, the closing grain contracts. September down 1 3/4, 379 3/4. December at 401 1/4, down 3/4, and March at 419 1/4, down 3/4. Soybeans for August 7.5 lower, 961 1/2. September at 965 1/2, down 6, and November 984 1/2, down 6 1/4. Wheat contracts, September 508 1/2, up 1/4. December up 3/4 at 529 1/4. March at 548 1/2, up a penny. Soybean meal for August down $4.20 a ton at $269.40. Soybean oil for August $53.79 a hundredweight, down a nickel. I meant to mention it at the beginning of this report, but for anybody that listened all the way through, I'll go ahead and tell you now it's not good news either. And I'll mention it again in the morning so we can tell everybody. But there was several reports today, maybe not several, but a few reports today along the Kansas-Missouri borderline of some pretty heavy infestations of army worms. So any of the listeners in that area, southwest Missouri, western Missouri, sure ought to keep an eye out for that, as those things can cause a lot of damage in a short amount of time. With the Missouri Department of Agriculture, that's a recap of your markets for Wednesday. This is Tony Hancock.